Let's go for it!
Hey everybody, welcome to The Dark Stuff. Thanks a lot for checking out my newest video. This is going to be my last video until I do my top 20 albums of 2017. That's kind of a very time-intensive video. It takes a lot of time with the editing because if you look back at my one from last year, you'll see that I put a lot into it. I feel that it's a very important video. It usually gets my most views of the year and stuff, so I want to make it a big deal, and so I'm going to be working on that for a while. Plus I got a little vacation time coming up in the short term, so I'm going to be doing that. So this is going to be my last video for a bit. Let's start off with the clickbait, which is Record Store Day, Black Friday 2017, which is, I'm sure that I put that in the title. I'm recording this the day after Black Friday, the Saturday, and otherwise known as Small Business Saturday, because I don't participate in Black Friday. I just think it's a stupid tradition, nothing to do with Record Store Day. It's just, I just don't like it. I don't like people lining up at 5 a.m. to fight each other over a deal on a fucking DVD player or Blu-ray or whatever it is. And I mean, there's footage of people, they had to shut down a mall in like Arkansas or Alabama or something because there were so many fist fights over toys and stuff that people were trying to get. It's just an obnoxious tradition, and I refuse to participate in it. But that didn't keep me from going the next day. And I have to say that I've been going to Record Store Day and then its Black Friday equivalent since it started 10 years ago. This is by far the weakest Record Store Day ever, okay, in terms of quality of the releases that they were putting out this year. Now, I talked to a buddy of mine at Homer's Records, a big record store here in Omaha, the downtown location, and he said they actually did better on this Black Friday than they did the year before, which is a sign of success, that, hey, you know, we made this much money this year, we did this much better the other year, so people are still digging it apparently, although I don't know what the hell they were getting because there were very, very few releases that I even would have considered getting, but I did get one that I'm very excited about, and that's this. That's the Mike Watt Contemplating the Engine Room on vinyl. Okay, this was never released on LP originally, so I mean, here's the CD originally. This is Mike Watt's second solo album after he quit Firehose, and of course the Minutemen, you know about that. But it's also is his first ever rock opera. If you know anything about like Mike Watt and the Minutemen and Firehose, you know that they're very influenced by Pete Townsend and the Who. And Mike Watt has written a number of rock operas, and it never did with Firehose, never did with Minutemen, but he has solo, and this is his first one. And the band on it was Nels Cline, who you know is now a member of Wilco, and a guy named Stephen Hodges on drums. I don't know much about him. So it's a gatefold. Okay.
6 weeks in once made. Rolling with the hair right, young pitching inside. Now clear the gangway and pop the hatches. Fireman hurling said, get them batches. We sing around in the town. Bring that bourbon right straight down. Mission man.
Now, in addition to this being the first time it's ever been pressed on vinyl, and that's cool in and of itself, it also comes with a download card for a special live album where it's the only time this album has ever been performed in its entirety. And it says here on the hype sticker, Contemplating the Engine Room, live in Long Beach, 1998, the 5-man opera. So it was Nels Cline, Hodgman, Watt, and 2 other people, and they played this album in its entirety live, the one and only time it was done. So you get that as a bonus. Now the album itself is only 3 sides, so on the 4th side they have this etching artwork. I don't know how well that's going to display, but I guess now you get to see what I'm looking at when I'm making the video. There's my camera. There's my Van Halen poster. Queens of the Stone Age, you can sort of see, all these other ones. There's the window that my cat frequently jumps up and gets in the middle of my videos. So, I mean, this set was $40, which is pretty pricey, but it's a double album. Well, it's 3 sides anyways. And Mike Watt is one of my favorites, and there's the only way I'm going to get that live recording is to get this. And I just thought, you know what? I made the trek all the way down to Homer's, and nothing else for Record Store Day looked remotely worth paying for. I mean, although with slight exception, there was a Blue Oyster Cult 2-disc two records rarities set, but it was also $40. And after spending $40 on the Mike Watt, I was kind of like, I love BOC, but I mean, I don't even have all their albums yet, and now I'm getting into the rarities and demos, and I don't think I'm at that stage yet with Blue Oyster Cult where I really want to get all the demos and all that. So I decided that wasn't for me. And the rest of the stuff, I mean, they had tons of copies of the Sun Ra, they had the Neil Young, they had all these stupid Grateful Dead collections that were there. That they had they bought way too many of those because they were still a ton of them there. But anyways, all I got was this for Record Store Day. Okay, now if you can remember all the way back to my last video last week, I mostly talked about the Hüsker Dü box set Savage Young Dü, and I gave about a 12-minute review of it, of its contents, of its origins, etc. You check that out because I'm not going to regurgitate all of that same information here. 12 minutes to talk about an album, though, that in YouTube terms, that's practically like a feature-length film. So I delved into it quite a bit. I also said that I made a mistake by getting the CD box, and I was going to maybe get the vinyl, even though it doesn't give you any extra materials. It's just the packaging is much cooler. I was at Almost Music. A buddy of mine was in town, an old high school friend who doesn't live in Nebraska anymore, lives in California, and he'd never seen this part of Omaha called the Blackstone District, which is this new district that's come up in the last 4 or 5 years. My favorite record store over there is Almost Music, and it's pretty close to my house, so I just said, hey, let's go over and check out Almost Music. Huge mistake, because I got tons of shit, and I bought the final version of the box set. So I went ahead and did it, and because I already heard all the music, because I've already, imported the CDs and listened to the CDs, I decided I'll do a live unboxing of the vinyl version on this one. So I don't have a knife like all you cool guys in the VC. I just am not a knife guy, I guess. So I'll just do it by hand. Here we go. I kind of want to try and save this hype sticker, so I'm going to do that. Take off the plastic. Okay, I'm going to save the hype sticker. Now we will take it out of the box. And I'm already so much more impressed than I was with the CD box. Box itself is the same, of course, as the CD. Well, here are each of the records. This is what you don't get with the CDs. Okay, there's record 1 with the really old picture of them on the back. This is like a 12-inch recreation of their Statues Amusement single. That's cool. And each one, this is like hard cardboard with another sleeve on the inside. I mean, this is very, very well made. Here's Land Speed Record with an alternate cover. I mean, the bottom is the cover that you're familiar with. So here's Land Speed Record. Wow. Excellent. Okay, so this is cool. Here is Everything Falls Apart. With that. And then, of course, the booklet, which I really didn't get to enjoy as much with the CD because it's so much smaller. But now that I have it in full size, I mean, this is just amazing. And I neglected to point out that most of the photos in this book are also have never been seen before, so that's a nice bonus. So there you go. I just opened up the box. It cost me $75, which is cheaper than what I saw it on Amazon, where they were already selling it for $150 because it was limited. So $75 plus the $40 that I spent for the CD box makes it not exactly the cheapest indulgence of mine to buy the same thing twice, but whatever. I did it. I'm not at all unhappy about it. I mean, Hüsker Dü is one of my favorites. I should have just bitten the bullet and bought the vinyl in the first place because it is way cooler. I think what sort of put me over the top in terms of wanting to buy it again was listening to this podcast series, which I'm recommending to everybody, even if you're not a Hüsker Dü fan. You know, I watch a lot of music documentaries, whether I give a shit about the band or not, because I think music documentaries are very interesting. This podcast series for Hüsker Dü is very much like a long-form documentary, but there's no video. You know, it's just an audio. It's a five-part series called Do You Remember? Story of Hüsker Dü. If you look it up on iTunes is where you can find it. It's put on by The Current, which is Minnesota Public Radio, and they produced the podcast series. They have interviews with Grant Hart before he died, Bob Mould, Greg Norton, so all of the original members, the original sound guy. They talked to Henry Rollins from Black Flag, who important role in the story. They talked to Lori Barbero from Babes in Toyland, who, in addition to being in a great band in Minneapolis, was also one of the earliest Hüsker Dü fans, which I didn't know. I thought I knew everything about the band, and I learned things in this podcast that I did not know. I recommend it to everybody. So if you can't, go on iTunes into the podcast thing and just search Do You Remember or Hüsker Dü, and you'll find it for sure. They're only like 30-minute episodes, so it's not like super time consuming. It is great. I'm recommending, even if you're like, I don't care about Hüsker Dü, it's a very, very interesting podcast. I mean, one of the most interesting things that I learned from this podcast was why the fuck were they playing so fast on Land Speed Record, when now that we've heard their earlier material through the box set, we know that they weren't that fast before, and they were never that fast again. It was just for the purposes of this Land Speed Record that everything on there is being played at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And this was recorded August 15th, 1981 at the 7th Street Entry in Minneapolis. And what we learned was they had put out their first single, and they went out on tour, and they went all over the country and were playing in, you know, hardcore places, basement shows, and VFW halls, and all these different places, playing with all of these hardcore bands who they didn't even really know about. They were all in different scenes. Some were in the Northwest, some were in LA, some were in New York, some were in DC, some were in Chicago. And what they were learning as they were playing with all these bands is seeing how fast they were playing and how much harder their sound was. And Hüsker Dü got really hard and fast. And when they returned to Minneapolis to record the live album, which they wanted to do right when they got off tour, so they were super tight, they were playing 1,000,000 miles an hour, and they were never like that before. And it is funny when you hear fans talk about how they were just shocked at how fast the band was playing and how extreme they had gotten. And it was just because they had been influenced by all this new stuff that they were discovering on the road. So anyways, there you go. You go back and watch the other video. That's where I really delve into the Hüsker Dü box. But I did want to point out that I bit the bullet and bought it again.
Plot destruction. Everybody. In the fields of body burning. Hatred to mankind, poisoning their brainwashed minds.
Now, even though I was at the record store to get that Mike Watt, I didn't find anything else really record store day oriented I was interested in, but I did decide to pick up the new Black Sabbath live album, The End, live in Birmingham, which is a 2-disc set recording of their very last show ever in Birmingham at the end of the Black Sabbath The End tour. Now, don't be confused, because they already put out an album, or this called The End, Black Sabbath. This was the tour EP that they were selling on the final tour, and they don't overlap. I mean, this has outtakes from the 13 album and a couple of live recordings, including live songs from the 13 album, which, by the way, that's this. Okay, so this is the Black Sabbath reunion album 13. No song from this is featured on this. Say what you will about that. I actually think this 13 album is pretty good. I like it. I mean, again, it's the drummer from Rage Against the Machine plays on it. It's not Bill Ward, but it's still a decent record, I thought, anyways. But this was $35 at the show, and I saw it in January 2016, and this is, of course, much cheaper now as an official live release. Now, I haven't listened to this yet. I listened to a track or two. I was excited because I saw Supernaut was on here. Unfortunately, they mix Supernaut, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, Megalomania into a 3.5-minute mix, which means you don't get very much of any of them, and Ozzy doesn't sing on them, which is probably okay because there's an issue with Ozzy's voice, and there has been for kind of a long time. Now, I had a video that I posted back in January of 2016 all about seeing Black Sabbath on their final tour, because they kicked off the tour in Omaha, of all places, okay? And there was rumors that Ozzy was sick beforehand and everything like that. And in my video, I sort of chalked it up to Tony being sick as to why they sort of sounded off. I didn't seem to think it was Ozzy, but upon further reflection, I realized it was Ozzy, and his voice was a little off. I mean, it was okay. It was a little pitchy, you know, heart far from perfect. But there's been stories and rumors about Ozzy for years about other people singing on the side to sort of fill out the voice because his voice is gone, or because he misses parts or whatever. The guy who's the current singer for Warrant right now, the 80s hair band, claims, and I have no reason to believe him, no one from Ozzy's camp is refuting what he said, but that he said he actually did a tour where he was on behind the stage, nobody could see him, and he was singing Ozzy's parts to fill out Ozzy because his voice was just not there. Now, I don't think there was any second singer when I saw them in Omaha because his voice was pretty rough, but this is probably tweaked in the studio pretty heavily because, where you go by word by word by word by word overdubbing, because then your voice can sound perfect when you're only singing like a few words instead of having to sing a whole song. But anyways, I got it. It is what it is. It's a final Black Sabbath live album, and I'm not going to skip out on that. Hey, while we're on the subject of Black Sabbath and Ozzy, I wanted to show something real quick. In my new intro, you see, everything's about a second long, so it's hard to see, but there's a picture of me and Ozzy and some other guy, and that's basically this. This is from his 1992 No More Tours tour. It's in this cheesy little frame that I have. It's a Polaroid picture. That's all we had. But I wanted to show you that I basically decided to scan it and then clip out the other guy and make myself an 8x10 of me and Ozzy from back in 1992. There we are. That's when Ozzy was retiring in 1992. Look what it looked like back then. Ozzy's still going. I have no hair, but Ozzy is still going. And it's funny, see, I'm wearing an Urge Overkill shirt, and I actually picked up a woman that day in that Urge Overkill shirt. Believe it or not. There's a woman who worked for Touch and Go Records, and she approached me because that was the label they were on, and we chatted it up, and I ended up going on a few dates with her, but nothing serious. But anyways, a side note, mostly just pointing that out because it's the picture of me and Ozzy. I got this for $3.99, Best of Madness. It has the 3 Madness songs I'm familiar with: Our House, House of Fun, and One Step Beyond. It's all I needed. They're worth $3.99. Great.
One step beyond.
I bought a bunch of other records too. I spent like a shit ton of money, over $150, I think, and I've never spent that much inside that store. I got a really nice gift, I mean, my dad gave me a bunch of money for like no real reason. I'm not gonna say what it is, but in the theory that, his idea is, I want to give you and your brother some of your inheritance while I'm still alive so that I can see you enjoy it, spending it, as opposed to waiting till he's dead and then he never sees what we did with the money or get to enjoy it. which is a very nice gesture, super nice theory. You know, I hope my dad lives till he's 120, but you know, he is 76, and I don't know how many more years he's got, but I hope plenty, you know. But you know, I don't know, so it was a very nice gesture. So I figured, all right, he gave me a bunch of money, and I'm mostly going to be using that, you know, stored away in savings. Nothing exciting about it, but I did feel a little bit freer to buy a couple of records because I knew that I could use that money for it. So I got these other records. I got a Split Enz one, Waita, which I found out is a duplicate, and I already have it. So I'm giving this one to a buddy of mine here in town. But I should have known, because it has One Step Ahead and History Never Repeats. And that probably would have been the Split Enz record I got, because those are the two songs I know the best. But anyways, so I got another record from David Nance. This is where he's using the Kenneth in there. This one's called Actor's Diary. It was recorded in 2012. It's limited to 330 copies. I got number 198. And David Nance's newest album, Negative Boogie, will for sure be in my top 20 of 2017. It was a little awkward in the sense that David Nance sometimes works there when he's not on tour, and he was there, and so he rang me up buying his own album. And now I know him, so it's not like totally weird, but it was just like, hey, can you ring me up for your album, you know? And he did, and I asked him sort of what it was like, and he said, this one's a little bit wilder, a little bit more freak out kind of stuff than what his new album is, but still really good. So I'm looking forward to that. So David Nance, Actor's Diary. I picked up this album, Visions of Excess, from the Golden Palominos. The Golden Palominos are a band that featured Bill Laswell, who you might know as a producer. He's produced all sorts of people. And Anton Fear. Anton Fear was the drummer. And I think he was also the original drummer for the Feelies, but he only played like on the first album. This was his band. And I see Richard Thompson is featured on a track. I don't really know this record at all, but Anton Fear was Bob Mould's drummer for his original solo band in 89-90. And so I decided I would sort of check this out. I remember checking out the Golden Palominos in the early 90s when Bob first made that band, and I checked them out and I didn't like it. But my tastes have changed dramatically since like 1990, so I figured I'll give it another whirl on this one from Golden Palominos. Next up is a band, this is an old indie band from St. Louis called Bunny Grunt. This is their debut album, Action Pants. I don't know this record. It's on the label No Life, which is a Los Angeles label. But I remember this band so much from the 90s, and when I had my label, I want to say that they either opened for one of my bands or one of my bands opened for them, but I feel like I've seen Bunny Grunt, and that they were supposed to have been good at the time, supposedly on the sort of the twee indie pop vibe. Just when I was looking them up to see where this was in their catalog, this is their debut. They've been back together for the last couple of years. Didn't know that. And they have a new-ish record called Volume 4, and the cover sort of looks like Black Sabbath Volume 4, which is kind of funny. So Bunny Grunt. Okay, and then last is a record. This was 50% off, so it was only $5. Enemies Like This by the band Radio 4. They're a New York City post-punk band. Their debut album Gotham is brilliant. You know, the Radio 4 comes from a Public Image Limited song, and that was a big part of their sound, and they were super cool. They reminded me of Gang of Four, Public Image, that kind of stuff. I remember them kind of getting weak after this. They signed on to Astralworks Records, which is more of an electronic and dance label and stuff. That's what this is on. This was their final album from 2006. I'm hoping I just misremembered this not being good, because, man, that debut Gotham is so good. And I actually played it somewhat recently, and it was still phenomenal. So, you know, that's where we're at. So, Radio 4. All right, everybody. Like I said, I'm probably going to be laying low here for a little bit, working hard on my top 20 albums of 2017. Now, this is only new releases. It's not reissues, and it's not live albums or greatest hits. And I started making my list, and I got up to 90 albums. I've been slowly eliminating them because I only want to do a top 50, and then the video is going to be top 20. I do 50 for my radio show, but I only do 20 here on the Dark Stuff. So that will be my next video. I'm shooting for like mid-December, So you're going to get a break from me for a couple of weeks. And but don't worry, it'll be worth checking out. You're going to like this. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.